meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe.
He was born in a small Austrian village on the border with Germany, and his family was quite poor. 3 of his siblings died in infancy. It is not surprising that when he became the leader of the Third Reich early in his political career, he loved to deliver long speeches about how well he understood the poverty of the German worker, about the need to tighten belts and move towards a bright future. As you have already guessed, we are talking about Adolf Hitler. Despite this, some historians consider Hitler to be the richest person of the 20th century, although his official salary as Chancellor of Germany was only 29,000 German marks, or $15,000 in today's conversion. Official salary is one thing. How did Hitler actually live? What was the source of his income besides his official salary? How did a practically bankrupt person become a billionaire in less than 10 years? Today, we will talk about the enormous secret wealth of the main villain of the 20th century. If you like this format, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. I'm Hustler. Enjoy watching. It is believed that the Führer amassed a huge personal fortune from the proceeds of the banned book Mein Kampf. This book was one of Hitler's significant sources of wealth. The book was primarily written as a political treatise, but it also provided funds to cover the expenses of his trial for treason in 1924. The case was related to his leadership of the attempted coup d'etat in 1923, known as the Beer Hall Putsch. The book's earnings allowed him to lead an extravagant lifestyle, collecting cars and purchasing luxurious mansions throughout the country. It may seem that we can end this video here, but the income from the book is just the tip of the iceberg. Money poured into his pockets from the sale of postage stamps featuring his image. In fact, any printed material with his face. The money was transferred to secret bank accounts belonging to the Führer. And here you can say, well, even in Nazi Germany, copyright was not abolished. Well, a person received royalties for his posters, stamps, and book. So what? But more importantly, for many years, Hitler evaded paying taxes. To be precise, in the 1930s, a law was passed exempting the Chancellor of Germany from paying taxes, which amounted to around 400,000 German marks, approximately $120,000 today. By coincidence, Hitler was the chancellor at that time, but he continued to claim that he was not interested in money and assured in his will, "What I possess belongs to the party, as it has any value at all." But today, historians agree that he accumulated a personal fortune in the form of property, artwork, and cash totaling over $6 billion. And, as you understand, such a fortune was not accumulated solely through the publication of his book. At the height of his personal popularity, over all those years, the book earned $1 million in royalties. For example, these funds were used to finance the expansion of his alpine residence known as the Berghof, not far from Berchtesgaden. The Berghof was located outside the city in the Bavarian Alps. It was reconstructed in 1935 into a luxurious retreat with 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a dining area for 30 people with 10 fireplaces, and other amenities. Although Hitler did not smoke, smoking on the terrace was allowed. This house was decorated and designed by Hitler himself. The Führer also invested no less than 2 million Reichsmarks in accelerating the secret reconstruction of a palace in Poland, which was intended to become another residence. On the other hand, despite his immense wealth, Hitler's expenses were quite modest. He preferred to practically forego his salary as Chancellor of the Reich. According to Hitler's Chamberlain, the Führer did not even carry money with him during his trips. Of course, Hitler had cash, as his friend Max Amann, the publisher of Mein Kampf, returned 10% royalties for millions of copies of the book. By the way, many copies of his book were bought specifically by the German government. However, according to some scholars, Hitler's ascetic attitude towards his wealth was nothing more than a publicity stunt. According to journalist and filmmaker Ingo Helmut Hitler, money was given significant attention by Hitler. Indeed, during World War II, the Nazi army accumulated thousands of tons of gold in conquered countries such as the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and many others. All this gold was then transported by train to southern Germany, and part of it went to the Merkers mine in central Germany. From 1939 to 1944, the Nazi army amassed gold and diamonds worth over $80 billion in a secured SS underground bunker located in the Bavarian Alps. This gold and diamonds constituted more than 50% of Hitler's personal capital. Germans also laundered large sums of stolen money through various financial institutions and banks located in neutral Switzerland, with the help of influential businessmen. The wealth was converted into foreign currency, mainly dollars, and over $4 billion of Hitler's wealth, consisting of gold and diamonds, were stored in the Vatican Bank. During World War II, the German army looted around $430 million worth of gold from foreign governments, including $270 million from Belgium and $200 million from the Netherlands. Almost everyone knows that Hitler was an unsuccessful artist, but few know how fanatically he regarded art. For example, under the guidance of Hermann Göring, one of Hitler's closest associates, several antique apartments were looted by the invading German army. This theft, carried out by German troops, is considered the largest art theft in modern history in order to fill a new gallery in Hitler's hometown of Linz. Among the stolen items were paintings, furniture, and sculptures. Here is a short list of well-known artworks stolen by the Nazi army. Big Blue Horses by Franz Marc, Still Life with Cranberries by Piero, Blitz Landscape of Paris by Albert Gleizes. Hugh Parker, an art historian, once said that Hitler's love for visual art helped him amass an astonishing personal collection worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He hosted formal dinners at his residence where art was freely discussed by visiting generals, with no mention of the bloodshed in the camps. Within 50 miles south of Munich, where one of the most horrific concentration camps was located, there was a place where Hitler stored artworks. According to his estimates, around 38,500 paintings owned by Hitler were worth millions of dollars each. But that's not all. Hitler also earned money through contributions made by businessmen and large corporations. When Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, these contributions became regular. Furthermore, there was a special government fund accessible only to Hitler and his closest associates. The money he obtained was reinvested by the leader of Germany. One of the most significant expenses for the Führer was his generous gifts, which he used to buy the loyalty of politicians and public figures. Overall, his wealth became one of the significant sources of his power. Now it's time to ask, where did all this wealth go? Before his death in 1945, Hitler wrote his will, leaving a large portion of his property to the Nazi Party. The remaining estates and assets of Hitler, including his apartment in Munich, were handed over to Bavaria because Hitler was a citizen of that state. What happened to the copyright of his book? Initially, Bavaria hindered the publication of the book in its German-speaking territories and tried to prevent its publication elsewhere. According to German legislation, the copyright expired 70 years after the author's death, which was on April 30th, 2015. Therefore, in January 2016, publishers faced significant demand for the first edition of the book following the Führer's death. Hitler's sister spent the last 12 years of her life fighting for access to her rightful inheritance, and in 1960, she received that right, albeit only a pittance compared to her brother's actual fortune. She inherited an apartment in Munich. According to declassified documents from decades ago, an investigation by the Strategic Services Unit, the predecessor of the CIA, discovered accounts totaling over $350 million in 1940. These funds were never accounted for after the war. The money that was likely hidden in Swiss banks was likely appropriated by members of the government in that country. The fate of stolen artworks is equally tragic. Over 40,000 pieces of art simply vanished without a trace. The majority of Hitler's wealth was either confiscated by the Allied forces or smuggled to Argentina by high-ranking Nazi officers. For example, Officer Adolf Eichmann escaped to Argentina on a submarine filled with gold and diamonds worth over $2 billion. Walter Rauff, another high-ranking officer, also fled Germany with artworks and gold. Interestingly, by early 1944, the Germans had started transporting gold and artworks to Argentina on various ships and submarines. Most of these vessels decided to take a long route along the African coast to evade the English fleet. According to records, over 20 such ships and 25 submarines filled with Nazi gold and art were sunk in the Atlantic. In conclusion, it can be said that Hitler's propaganda focused all its efforts on creating the public image of a selfless and devoted leader. However, in reality, he was not the deity he was portrayed to be. Hitler was involved in numerous earthly dirty dealings, which made him one of the wealthiest Germans of his time and perhaps one of the richest people in the world. We appreciate your support through likes and comments on the video. Please let us know which historical figure you would be interested in learning about. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.